In the heart of Boston, during the bitter winter of 1997, the city was a landscape of frost and shadows. The wind sliced through the narrow streets, rattling the old windows and sending stray newspapers tumbling across icy sidewalks. Amidst this cold, indifferent world, a small figure stood alone. 7-year-old Daniel, clutching a blue backpack that dwarfed his tiny frame. The straps bit into his shoulders, and the scuffed fabric bore silent witness to the journey that had brought him here. His mother had told him to wait by the lamppost, promising to return in 5 minutes. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, Daniel's hope began to flicker, then fade. Like the streetlights that sputtered to life overhead, he stood, shifting his weight from foot to foot, feeling the cold seep through the seams of his boots. The snow soaked his socks, numbing his toes, and his fingers grew stiff and red. He watched the world move around him, strangers hurrying past, their faces hidden by scarves and hats, eyes fixed straight ahead. No one paused. No one questioned why a child stood alone in the biting cold, his breath curling in the air. The city was alive, but it did not see him. Time became a blur. Daniel had no watch, no way to measure the hours as they crawled by. He counted the flickers of the streetlights, the steady rhythm of passing cars, the distant wail of sirens. He waited, believing in the promise his mother had made. She would come back. She always did, even when she was late. But as darkness gathered and the city's noise grew distant, that belief began to unravel, thread by thread, until all that remained was a hollow ache and the sting of abandonment. Eventually, a store clerk noticed the boy, shivering and silent, and called the police. The officers arrived, their uniforms crisp and their voices gentle. They led Daniel to a patrol car, wrapping him in a scratchy blanket. He was taken to a shelter where a woman with kind eyes offered him a bowl of soup and asked for his last name. "Thompson," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Daniel Thompson." But when they checked the records, there was no missing child by that name. No frantic phone calls, no posters, nothing. Foster care became Daniel's new reality. He was placed with a couple in a small town west of Boston, where the world felt quieter but no less lonely. His foster parents were kind in a distant way, careful with their words and their affection, as if afraid to let themselves care too much. Daniel learned the rules of this new life: when to speak, when to listen, how to keep his memories tucked away where no one could touch them. At night, he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for footsteps in the hallway. He imagined his mother's return, her arms wrapping around him, her voice whispering apologies. But the footsteps never came. As the years passed, Daniel's memories faded at the edges, softened by time, but never truly gone. When he was 10, he was adopted by the Coles, a family who offered stability and a new last name. Daniel Cole. He accepted it, grateful for the security it brought, but he never stopped remembering the boy he had been, the boy who waited by the lamppost, believing in promises that were never kept. By the time he turned 19, Daniel was reckless with questions that had no answers. He worked part-time jobs, saved what he could, and began to dig into his past. The foster file he received was shockingly thin. Just a handful of papers, no birth certificate, no relatives listed. Only a single haunting note. Found at 44th and Pine. No follow-up. The words echoed in his mind. Why had there been no follow-up? Why had no one searched for the woman who left him behind? Determined to find the truth, Daniel visited the intersection where he had last seen his mother. The neighborhood had changed. Old buildings replaced by shiny condos. The lamppost now rusted and leaning. Standing there, Daniel closed his eyes and pictured himself as a child, shivering in the snow, waiting for a mother who would never return. He felt the years collapse, the ache of loss, as fresh as the day it began. In a nearby library, Daniel combed through old newspapers, searching for anything that might explain what happened. It was there, in the archives, that he found a small, easily overlooked article dated December 14th, 1997. Unidentified woman found dead in Charles River. No name, just a brief description. Brunette, mid-30s, denim jacket. The date matched the night. He was left alone. It was a clue, fragile and uncertain, but it was all he had. He brought the article to the police, hoping for answers. The case was old, the details faded. The woman's remains had been cremated, no family had claimed her, no identification had been found. It was another unsolved story from a city that had seen too many. All that remained was a sliver of hope, a DNA test, a chance to know for sure. The weeks that followed were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. Daniel sent in his DNA sample, checking his phone obsessively for updates. When the results finally arrived, the truth hit him with the force of a winter storm. The woman in the river had been his mother. Her name was Emily Thompson. She was 34 years old, a waitress at a downtown diner. People remembered her as hardworking, quiet, always arriving early and leaving late. The police report noted no signs of violence, no struggle, just the cold, and a note found in her pocket. "Forgive me. He deserves better." Daniel read those words over and over, his heart torn between anger and love. It was all he had left of her, a final, desperate message from a mother who believed she was doing the right thing. In the days that followed, Daniel visited the bridge where his mother had jumped. The Charles River, cold and still, reflected the grey sky above. He sat on a bench nearby, holding the DNA report and the newspaper clipping, trying to make sense of it all. For years, he had believed his mother had abandoned him, that she had chosen to leave him alone in the world. Now he understood that her choice was born of something else. Fear, desperation, perhaps even love, twisted by circumstance. She believed she was saving him, that he deserved a better life than she could provide. But mercy, he realized, could hurt just as much as cruelty. Determined to understand more, Daniel reached out to anyone who might have known his mother. A former co-worker at the diner remembered Emily as kind but withdrawn, always glancing over her shoulder as if she expected trouble. Digging deeper, Daniel discovered court records, a restraining order filed against a man named Michael Carver. The details were sparse, the trail went cold, but it painted a picture of a woman fighting to protect her child from dangers no one else could see. Forgiveness did not come easily. Daniel struggled with conflicting emotions, grief, anger, compassion. He could not fully forgive his mother for leaving him, but he could understand the impossible choices she faced. That understanding became a quiet comfort, a way to bridge the gap between the child he had been and the man he was becoming. In 2015, Daniel graduated from college and moved to New York, carrying with him the lessons of his past. He found purpose in helping others, working with missing persons, advocacy groups, speaking at schools and shelters. He shared his story not for sympathy, but to raise awareness, For every child still waiting by a metaphorical lamppost, for every parent struggling in silence, his experiences became a beacon for others, a reminder that hope and healing could be found even in the most unlikely places. Though he never legally changed his name back to Thompson, Daniel kept it close. A sticky note on his desk, a silent tribute to the mother he lost and the boy he used to be. It was a reminder of where he came from and of the journey he had taken to find himself. On the 20th anniversary of his mother's death, Daniel returned to Boston. He stood alone on the bridge, the city spread out before him, the river flowing quietly below. In his hand, he held a paper crane, something his mother used to fold for him when he was small. He whispered a prayer, then let the crane drift into the water, watching as it floated away, carried by the current. It was a gesture of remembrance, a way to say goodbye. Daniel knew he would never have all the answers. Some questions would remain forever out of reach, lost to time and memory, but he no longer needed those answers to move forward. He had found peace in understanding, in naming the silence that had haunted his life for so long. Some stories do not end with rescue or reunion. They end with acceptance, with the quiet strength to carry on. Daniel's story was one of survival, of learning to live with loss and to find meaning in the spaces it left behind. And in that understanding, he discovered a measure of peace, enough to let go, enough to hope, enough to begin again.